The illusion of time. What's real? What did Buddha, Jesus, and Einstein declare? Why time does not exist? When we ask ourselves why we think time exists, most of us would say, because we see everything changing, always. And so it is. Everything in and around us is constantly changing, from beginning until the end. The question, however, is the reason for this perpetual change to be found outside the changing subject, caused by a phenomena called time, or is all change coming from inside the changing subject itself? I don't think that it is hard to see that the latter is correct. That which makes things change, the cycle of life, to a flower, a human being, or an animal is set by the characteristics of that particular life's form and not by an outer cause such as time. What we call time is just a method for measuring the perpetual change. Because of our need to measure this perpetual change, we decided to divide the cyclic changes such as seasons and day and night into months, 24 hours, minutes, etc. These well-known changes are caused by the ever-moving planetary positions within our solar system, and not because there exists such a thing as time. So, there are no minutes, but we decided that after counting 60 seconds, we say that a minute has passed. Based on minutes, we calculate hours, days, months, years, centuries, etc. In this way, we can count the number of heartbeats per minute, years from birth to death, and we even can calculate the number of years from the Big Bang until today. But we also say, it seems as if time has stood still in that old village. Nothing has changed. Actually, there is only now, in which all that is manifested appeared, changes, and disappears. Because we ourselves are part of this process of change, it might be difficult for us to grasp that we ourselves too are just changing in the eternal now. If we are able to look upon ourselves from outside our moving train, witnessing our life passing by, we will probably be able to see that the now always is, and that we are passing through this eternal, unmoving now. As we know, Albert Einstein became famous because of his theory of relativity. In our context, it is interesting to understand that Einstein studied the method of calculating time. He discovered, a moment in time from my position need not necessarily to be the same from your position. I do not know whether Einstein ever stated that time does not exist at all. As for me, he had better have said so. Chapter 1. What is the theory of relativity? When happiness is present, it exists only in the moment. When unhappiness appears, it comes uninvited, an unwelcome guest. You can't throw it out, nor can you refuse it. Time seems to slow down, as if every clock in the world is conspiring against you. When you are happy, time flies. When you are unhappy, time suddenly becomes sluggish, terrible, but truly, it does nothing to you. Albert Einstein was repeatedly asked, what is the theory of relativity? His theory is an extremely complex phenomenon. He couldn't just provide a simple answer. One needs to undergo a lengthy learning process involving advanced mathematics and physics to grasp even a bit of it. It's said that only about 12 people alive during Albert Einstein's time understood his theory of relativity. But people still insisted on asking him. Everyone had heard of the theory of relativity, and if Einstein happened to be somewhere, they would ask him about it, so he needed to have an answer. His response was, if you are sitting with the person you love or sitting on a hot pan, do you feel time passing at the same rate? Obviously, for the man on the hot pan, a minute feels like a century, and with your loved one, a century passes like a moment. Einstein said, that's my theory of relativity. If I shared more, you wouldn't fully understand, but this should give you a general idea. Time is so linked to your mind that one might say time and mind are almost a single phenomenon. Chapter 2. What is time? A personal journey through the definitions and understandings. Time, an elusive concept, has intrigued philosophers, scientists, and thinkers, including myself, throughout the ages. In this essay, I will walk you through my lifelong journey of grappling with the notion of time, from my early fascination with Stephen Hawking's works to my profound insights influenced by Einstein and OSHO. My quest began at age 15 with a simple question: what is time? Armed with Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time, I was introduced to the arrow of time and its implications. Later, the universe in a nutshell expanded my horizon, presenting time as a linear forward motion or as a cyclic phenomenon, represented through the metaphor of a donut-shaped universe. These visual metaphors of trains traveling on tracks, either straight or looping, captured my imagination, revealing the unidirectional and cyclic nature of time. High school brought a technical definition into my sphere. 1 second is defined as the duration of 9,192,631,770 cycles of radiation of the cesium-133 atom. This precise scientific explanation, however, left me cold, hinting at a reality where even a second is not independent but a measure of other ongoing processes. This period was marked by an intuitive feeling that perhaps my youthful simplicity came closer to understanding time than any complex scientific theory could. By then, I had learned a trick in physics. If you have to define something, you write it like this: time equals t equals sine something. And I had come up with many definitions, from absolute basics in thermodynamics to quantum electrodynamics, each time ending up defining it in terms of something else happening. But the definition by change of entropy, as in thermodynamics, resonated deeply because it aligned with the arrow of time. I learned from Hawking and teachings from OSHO a decade later. This offered a second clue. Time appears when there is a change in the space around you, as time needs a reference point. At this point, another definition I came across was, time is God's way of keeping everything from happening at once, anonymous. But it made no sense then. Time is an illusion that there is no time, nothing called time. Time is a psychological construct of human beings, arising from our need to understand and make sense of the changing universe around us. This brought me to our closest tricksters, the illusionists and the greatest puppeteers, clocks. We think clocks tell us the time. We think clocks measure time. We think we know the time by looking at a clock, but ironically, the objective reference of a clock is another clock. And the reference for all clocks is the movement of planet Earth around the sun, and further to that, our perception that the planet is moving. So again, what emerges in the picture is human perception of a changing universe around us. Thus, my new definition became, time is the entity that gives us a sense of a changing universe around us. And then, into my life came the giant, Professor Albert Einstein, who forever changed our perception of the world around us by introducing relativity. This validated my own understanding of time through reference frames. Professor Einstein stated that space and time are not separate entities. There is no space separate from time, or more precisely, no time separate from space. There is a space-time continuum, and everything is relative, which means you and I are experiencing different times right from the start, though the difference is so minuscule that humans can't perceive it. For instance, a woman traveling in a spaceship right now is in both of our futures as she moves faster than us, and as she approaches the speed of light, she will move further into the future. These are the conclusions of the theory of relativity. time and human consciousness. But again, if you think deeply, what emerges is a changing physical world, a changing universe. The important thing in time is change. And it is also hidden from physicists or deliberately ignored by them, and that is humans. After all, it is human perception that assigns a specific state to matter and defines it as a future state. I might be vague here, but time needs change to define it, and time needs us to see that change to define it, and we, as you know, are consciousness. This brought me to my final round. One beautiful morning, I was listening to a lecture by OSHO on Gautama Buddha's Heart Sutra, and he explained, Buddha says, "Truth is when you see a dancer. There is no dancer, but only the dance. When you see a river, there is no river, but only the flowing. When you see a tree, there is no tree, but only the growing. When you see love, there is no one who loves, but only loving. Life is a process." This shook the ground under my feet. Everything about my understanding of time was stable. At that time, everything I knew, the rate of change of entropy, electrodynamics, mathematical peaks, everything was stable, like looking back and connecting the dots. This has led me to my current understanding of what is time. And that is, time is an illusion. There is no time, nothing called time. Time is a psychological construct of human beings, arising from our need to understand and make sense of the changing universe around us. We have created time. We have invented time. Time exists because we can create memories and look back on the past. Time exists because we can think about the future, predict the future, create the future in our minds. Time does not exist. It exists only in our minds. And furthermore, my understanding was affirmed when I heard Osho speak about Jesus Christ, who said, "In the kingdom of heaven, time shall be no more." Jesus Christ. This completes the circle. From your perception of the world, you create time, and from your perception of yourself, you escape from time. Chapter 3. Time, the moment, the real. You may start with your dreams in the night and then later watch your daydreams too, fully awake, remembering that what exists between two non-existent sides is a dream. And then suddenly, you will find that something within you is changing. Whereas before the mind wanted to hold on to everything, now it no longer has any grip. While before the mind wanted a situation to remain the same forever, now it wants to move on from it with a smile. Because trying to hold on to whatever doesn't exist on either side, called before and after, is like catching air in your fist. The more tightly you try to enclose the air in your fist, the more it slips away. If you don't try to hold it, it remains. If you try and grab it, you lose it. The moment you come to see that what exists between two non-existent sides only appears to exist and is actually a dream, the hold of the unreal in your life will begin to drop away. The dream will begin to shatter. Then what is left, what remains, is real. Whatsoever you are unable to erase even when you are fully awake, whatsoever you are unable to efface even through your total awareness, whatsoever remains in spite of you, is real. It is eternal. It has no beginning and no end. One should say it is timeless. This too needs to be understood. The unreal will always be in the realm of time, because that which was not yesterday is today, and will not be tomorrow is divided into three chronological parts: past, present, and future. But that which was yesterday, is today, and will also be tomorrow, cannot be divided into three parts. What past, present, or future can be there in this context? It simply is. That is why there is no sense of time with the real, no concept of time. The real transcends time, is beyond time, and the unreal is within time. As I said to you before, You are standing on a riverbank and your reflection appears in the river. You may be standing out of the river, but your reflection can only appear in the river. The water is needed as a medium. Any medium that can function as a mirror, any medium that can reflect, is essential. But in order for you to exist, no reflecting medium is needed. And yes, for an image of you to be formed, a reflecting medium will be needed. Time is this medium of reflection. The real stands on its banks and the unreal is reflected in this stream of time. The reflection that appears on the mirror of time, the stream of time, is the unreal. And nothing can ever remain steady in time, just as nothing can remain steady in water, because water, by its very nature, is unsteady. Hence, no matter how steady the reflection may look, it will always waver. Water, by its very nature, is wavering. All these wavering reflections formed on the mirror of time were not there yesterday, are here today, and will no longer be here tomorrow. Even to say, yesterday is too long a time. They were not there a moment ago, and will be gone the next moment. So that which is changing moment to moment in this way, which is momentary, is unreal. That which is beyond the moment, that which always is, that alone is real. Chapter 4. Why are we so time-obsessed? Time is perceived differently around the world, particularly in Western cultures where it is seen as linear, a single, unrepeatable trajectory from birth to death. This viewpoint contrasts sharply with Eastern philosophies, where time is often seen as cyclical and regenerative. Let's delve into why these differences exist and how they influence our attitudes toward time. The concept of linear time in Western cultures can be traced back to a lack of belief in rebirth, unlike in Eastern traditions where the cycle of rebirth is a foundational concept. Historical figures like Pythagoras and Jesus hinted at it, but these suggestions never fully permeated Western thought. As a result, birth and death in the West are seen as absolute and final events, making every moment precious and irreplaceable. This has led to a deep-seated time obsession, where history and time are inextricably linked, and the notion of losing even a single moment can cause considerable anxiety. In contrast, Eastern philosophies embrace the concept of rebirth, which supports a cyclical view of time. Here, life is a series of recurring events, birth, death, and rebirth, suggesting that nothing is truly lost and everything will eventually return. This perspective aligns with the natural world, where all movements, whether atomic particles or celestial bodies, are circular. Even the concept of space, as discussed by Einstein, is seen as limitless and circular. This cyclical nature leads to a more relaxed attitude towards time, as everything that passes is expected to come back around. Even the movement of a vacuum is circular. In fact, that which is not circular cannot move. Movement is circular. The whole of nature moves in a circle. Summer follows again in the same course. Each season comes and goes and is followed in repetitive progress. Time cannot be different. Time is nothing but a medium of movement. You become aware of time because of movement. We cannot conceive of movement without time. Time means a sequence between moving events. Something is followed by something else. This passage occurs in time. Since everything is moving in a circle, the passage of time cannot be non-circular. History is an awareness of time, its events and their position in a particular framework, the framework of linear movement. People in the East became aware of linear time and of history only when the East came in contact with the West. Then the East felt that it was lacking something. We have no history at all. We cannot create any history. Anyone can say that Buddha is mythological, and we cannot prove that he is not. Anyone can say that Rama is just a story, a myth. We cannot say that he is not because we have not maintained any record of when he lived. Where is the proof? We were not aware that any proof is needed. We became aware of it only when we came in contact with the West. We came to know that they have everything recorded. They have exact proofs. Only then India began to write its history. But still, a historic sense is not there. It cannot be, because with a circular time concept, history cannot exist. With an infinite opening toward the future, with an infinite possibility of repetition, a historic sense cannot exist. With the concept that death is just temporary, just a phase and not the end, history cannot exist. History can exist only with the concept of absolute death. Then, each moment becomes significant. You have to live it, otherwise it will be lost. Tension follows. You cannot be relaxed. The West can never be relaxed unless its time concept changes. How can you be relaxed when a moment is going, passing, and it will not come back? And the paradox is that the more obsessed you become with time, the more tense you become, and the less you can live each moment. The more obsessed you are with time, the more you will write history, and the less you will live it. History as it exists, and it cannot exist otherwise. This history, this historic attitude, can never confront those phenomena that are beyond time. Even life is beyond time. It passes through time, but is always beyond. It is like a lotus leaf, always in water, but still beyond water, untouched by it. Life is like that, and the deeper life becomes, the more lotus leaf-like it is, always touching somewhere, but never touched, always in touch with time, but always beyond time, untouched virgin.